Your brain is a miracle. It takes care of all the basic stuff you need to do to survive. Walk, talk, eat, regulate. But it is unique in the animal kingdom. It also reasons, learns, and forms new neural pathways, allowing you to make friends, recognize social cues, and create moral codes. But what would change if you understood your expectations, but just couldn't stop yourself from doing the opposite? In the 1800s, the railroad was a big business, and it seemed the perfect place for a young man by the name of Phineas P. Gage to find some work. The 25-year-old foreman was by all accounts an upstanding and capable man. His employers described him as a shrewd businessman with a well-balanced mind. In September 1848, Phineas was busy tamping blast powder to clear the railway when the powder ignited, sending his tamping iron through his skull. Such force and heat that the iron landed smeared with brain several yards behind him. Remarkably, Phineas was relatively fine as he sat moments later writing in his work log and assuring the doctor that he was only mildly inconvenienced. His employees prepared a coffin for him, but Phineas continued to beat the wound and infection that came with the injury. His only visible injuries were the loss of his left eye and facial weakness. Not bad, all things considered. His employers insisted he rest up and return, so Phineas took some time off and came back 10 weeks later, a changed man. The respected gentleman from before was now described as fitful, irreverent, and grossly profane. He was promptly fired. Phineas's life had completely changed. He had went from gainful employment, stability, and friends to unemployed, broke, and friends saying he just wasn't himself anymore. He spent the remainder of his life traveling with the Barnum Circus and working as a stable hand from Vermont to Chile until returning home in 1960, where he shortly died of epilepsy. What had his injury done that had so impacted Phineas's life? Well, when the rod had penetrated his skull, it had passed through the prefrontal cortex. This region controls your conscious actions, planning, and personality. This begins developing at birth and is not fully developed until age 25. A good way to describe this is impulse control. But more interestingly, prefrontal damage does not impact the knowledge of right and wrong or the ability to learn things like math or memorization. Someone with prefrontal damage can tell you why they shouldn't steal, but can't stop themselves from stealing. In 1999, Leanna Geddes went to the hospital for a cesarean. Everything was as it should be, but when she woke, she saw the initials AZ carved into her abdomen. The nurses in the operating room were alarmed when the doctor, Alan Zarkin, proclaimed, "I did such a beautiful job. I'll initial it." Alan was promptly suspended and sued. Investigation continued to uncover inappropriate behaviors. When a brain scan was performed, Alan was found to have Pick's disease, a rare dementia in the frontal lobe. In these cases, the names could be changed and the situations repeated to the individual. They would say the perpetrator should be punished. This means they cannot plead insanity. An insanity defense means the individual has no grasp on right or wrong, but frontal lobe damage does not take that away. So where does this leave us? Two doctors have begun to revolutionize the way head trauma is presented in the courtroom. They visited death row inmates, combed through medical records, and supervised MRIs. Their research has led to a frontal damage defense for inmates on death row. For criminals such as David Zink, who suffered 20% loss of his frontal lobe after a piece of wood from a sawmill splintered and flew into his brain. His life continued to be chaotic and filled with aggression until he was convicted in 2001 for the murder of a 19-year-old girl. His defense tried to utilize the research to spare him the death penalty, but he was executed in 2015. Dr. Lewis is hopeful that society will be able to learn to treat frontal damage as a disease, finding ways to help these individuals live a better life. Frontal damage does not have to end in criminal behavior. With early recognition and support, Phineas was able to live a relatively independent life and was even recorded as having positions of responsibility later on. Alan Zarkin is currently living happily with his family. With more research and more understanding, maybe we'll see more happy endings like these. Thanks for watching.